everyone, it's Karen. Welcome, and I'm excited to share this project with you today. It's a wall hanging that I've created for Christmas. I've done this as a design team project for Paper Rose Studio. So all the products that I'm going to use today are from Paper Rose, other than the canvas, which was $3 at the dollar store. So this is what I found. There you go, it's $3, and it came with its own little markers. Not that I've used those, but I started by removing that string, so I had to dig out a few tools for this, just a screwdriver and some pliers just to pull the staples out. And then to cover those canvases, each canvas is 5 inches by 7, and the side thickness is 5/8 of an inch. So I've cut 3 pieces of red cardstock that are 9.5 inches by 7.5. So if you do use other canvases, just check and see how thick they are, what the dimensions are. And you'll want to add double the thickness of the canvas plus the actual size of the canvas. So here I am scoring on all 4 sides at 5/8 of an inch and 1.25 inches. And I like to create these little tabs because it helps to cover the entire seam so you don't get any white spots showing. So to make those tabs, I like to go on the longitudinal side, and I am cutting along those 2 fold lines right to that second line. You only want to keep that one inside square. So all the other 3 squares will come off, and you save that one little tab. So again, cutting straight up the long lines to the second crease, and then getting rid of those 3 outside squares and just keeping the inside one. And then I like to just trim off a tiny little bit off these edges just to help make it a little bit neater on the back. So I did that on all 4 sides. And then to fold this, you want to fold on the side that you have creased. That becomes the right side. So I'm folding these down and under. They both go in the same direction all around. And I did use my bone folder off camera just to really crease these. Okay, now on my canvas, I have put a strip of double-sided adhesive tape. I'm going to remove that release paper, and I'm just putting that inside that little rectangle that I've created with the folds. And I fold up the 2 long sides because they have the tabs. So I'm just folding it right up, tuck the tabs in on each side, and then you can do the end pieces, and it works beautifully. Now I haven't put adhesive tape on the back side of this. You could. It just seemed more finicky to me to have more double-sided tape, so I ended up using a staple gun for this. So there it is, and it's just 4 little staples just to hold all that background or the backing in place. And there you can see it's all really nicely covered. It doesn't have any white corners showing, which I was happy about. Okay, so these are all the Paper Rose dies that I have used. I will list everything down below in the description box if you are interested in any of these. But the main star of the show is this Nature Stroll Festive cardstock from Paper Rose. I love this collection. It's just beautiful. So you can see that I have fussy cuts on the top edges. I've chosen those 3 pages to use on these panels. There's two of each in the collection. Now, although I've cut the top edges, I need to figure out how high up on my canvas or how low to put this. And it was a little tricky. You cannot see where the bottom of the canvas is. So I knew that flower, I didn't want it hanging over the edge because it would be too hard to fold. So I knew to keep it in a little bit, but now how high up and down, I wasn't sure. So this is what I did. I just held up another panel, and then you can see that those poinsettias will definitely be showing on it. So once I had that figured, I held on to it all together, flipped it over, and just used a pencil to draw in where that rectangle was going to go. And then it was kind of easy after that. I just used a ruler, measured out 1.25 inches from that line, and trimmed everything down along that edge so then it was easy to know where the fold lines were going to go. So there I've trimmed all the edges now, and I still need to score at 5/8 of an inch and 1¼ inches. So that's 1¼ inches there, so that's right along that pencil line I drew, and that's 5/8 of an inch in. And I did all the edges on that, and once again I'm making the tab, so cutting on the long side all the way to that second fold line, and then cutting away the 3 outside squares. And then folding all that under again. I actually creased this on the wrong side, but it was okay. Okay, so now I'm putting it on the back of this canvas, and I just taped this with a low-tack tape in place because I wasn't sure at this point where I was going to put all those die cuts. So the easiest thing was to have this just taped down because otherwise it just kept coming off. So on all 3 panels I used low-tack tape and did that. Okay, now this poinsettia die, I only used the outline dies, and I just cut that from white cardstock. Now this is Moonlight Pearl Luna Paste from Cosmic Shimmer, and it is gorgeous. It leaves this really pretty shine. You can see on those poinsettias on the right how shiny it is. I just put some on a scrap piece of cardstock, and you want to smooth it on in one direction when you use it. So once that panel was dry, I cut out those other poinsettia flowers from it. Now I like to shape my flowers a little bit, especially because this isn't going in the mail, and it just gives a bit more dimension to it. So you can see here the one on the left is not shaped, and the one on the right has a bit of shaping to it. So to do that, you need a soft mat, like this is an old computer mat, and a set of ball styluses. Now, I'm not an expert at this whatsoever. This is just what I do, guys. But I'm just running lengthwise along each little petal, and that helps to curl them under. So I'm using a smaller stylus tool for this, and you can see there it's already shaping them under. So once you've got all of those done, I used a slightly larger ball, and you flip it back over to the right side up and push in, and I'm pressing quite firmly to do that. But now you can see it gives it that cupping shape, and the petals are turned down. So I did that with all of these little petals, and then to put them together, I like to put a little piece of foam tape in between because that just separates them a little and gives a little more dimension to the flower. Okay, now for the centers of the flowers, I am using these Prills. Now, these are white, and I wanted them to be pink. So I've created this little foil, I don't know, cup, and I'm just putting some Prills in there. And I've got a Copic marker refill. Now that one I believe is RV13. And I put in about 5 or 6 drops of refill into these Prills, and then just used a palette knife to move them around and just get them well coated with the Copic marker refill. And I had to set that aside to dry for a little bit. So now that they're dry, I just put a puddle of glue on the inside of all my little flowers. You can see how shiny that Luna Paste is. And then I'm doing this on copy paper because these go everywhere, but just sprinkling a few into each of the flowers, and then I use my finger to sort of press them down just a touch. You can add more glue and another layer if you want even more little centers. Okay, now this die, the Aussie Christmas gum leaf die, is beautiful. And I am cutting this also from that Luna Paste cardstock. Now I wanted to show you here, save those little leaf inserts because, well, you'll see, I think they are so pretty, and I sort of made a weird flower out of these. So they were falling on my desk, and I thought, oh, maybe I could use those. So what I did is I sort of shaped them a bit, and then I glued them to a scrap little piece of cardstock and added some silver pearls. And this is how they turned out. And I just thought that kind of matched some of the flowers that were already on that cardstock. So here my camera's out of focus, I'm sorry. But I am just trimming off this. This was a circle die. There is a die that Paper Rose has that is just this gum leaf and holly. But I didn't have that. I've got the one with a circle. So I had to sort of trim this out. And it really wasn't hard. And the holly is really easy. There's lines, and you just make a point at the end of the lines and sort of curve it in and out. So I made a few of those. I cut a few. And then this candle, I used that paper I thought was so pretty. It's the back of one of the fronts that I used on the canvas. And it was just this teeny scrap, but it worked for the candles. So I have die cut out that scrap of cardstock and added some glossy accents. And then for the flames, I just added some of the Luna Paste. And I did die cut a few more of those little stems. And this pinecone border I also cut from that Luna Paste cardstock. It has a lot of shine, which you just don't see in the camera here. Okay, so now I have stamped and embossed the Merry Christmas sentiment. I did it on the same red cardstock. I didn't trust myself to stamp and emboss on the panel itself, so that was my way out. And I have arranged everything the way I think I want it to go. And so now I am gluing down all of these little die cuts, just tucking them in behind. I've sort of arranged them how I want, and I was trying to keep them in relatively the same position. So once all of those were stuck down, I flipped my panel over, and I'm removing that low-tack tape on the back now. And in order to glue this on, I first put some double-sided adhesive along the bottom and the side edges. So that's what I'm doing there. There was a bit of glue that came off on the red front, but it will all be covered by the die cuts after. And so once I had that tape in place, I went in and I was just adding a little bit of glue to all these little pointy bits at the top and down along the bottom. And now to put this on, I am lining up the bottom part where the double-sided adhesive is. I haven't removed that release paper, but I'm just trying to get it in position before I stick all this glue down. So once it's there, and I did want 3 hands for this, but once it's there, it's easy to just press down into place. And then everything stays where it's meant to be. And I did this on all 3 panels as well. So then you can flip it back over and remove the release paper. And then it's just a matter of pressing up that long side and tucking the tab in again, and then the end. Now on this one, I did put a piece of double-sided adhesive on the back, just because it's the only one back there. So rather than stapling, I just put that one little piece down. And you can see I didn't quite get mine lined up, but it seemed to be okay when I flipped it over, so I left it. Now I'm just gluing down those flowers on the front. I had just left those tacked down with low tack tape. So just finishing those off. And I did the same with all 3 panels, so I made sure they were all glued down and taped to the back. And all that's left then is to add some ribbon to hold these together. So I have cut a piece of satin ribbon that is about 40 inches long. Mine was slightly longer, I think, but it's around that. And you want to figure out the order that these panels will appear in. And then once you've got that sequence right, flip them over. You'll need a heavy-duty stapler for this. And so you turn the satin side of the ribbon down. And I've moved that in from the outside edge of that canvas. I think that's probably about 1/2 inch, but just I eyeballed it. And just one little staple to hold it in. Now you want to be sure that the top of the ribbon is not twisted or anything, that it's all flowing in a nice straight line. And then again staple the other side in about the same place on the back of that first canvas. And I did wish that I had used masking tape or something to hold my panels in place, because on my glass mat, every time I touched them, they just kept wiggling around and moving, and I was actually trying to use those grid lines to make sure they were lined up and down, and that they were about 1 inch apart. So this middle one gave me a little bit of grief, and I think if I had just taped it down in the first place, it would have been a whole lot easier. But it did work out in the end. You just have to be a little bit more patient. And so for this middle one, well, and I guess the top one too, it's 4 staples on that ribbon, one on each of the bottom ends and one on the top ends. So you can see I'm trying to really line those up left and right and just an inch apart. These upper ones are easy enough to do because you just want to pull it tight, and then the top ones. So that's all that there really is to this wall hanging. And I have to say, guys, I was thrilled with how it turned out. I actually want to hang it up now, but my husband seems to think that's maybe a little too early. I don't know why, but he does. So I was just thrilled with this, and I cannot wait to hang it up. So I hope that that's given you all a little bit of inspiration and maybe an idea for something more to do. Thank you so very much for joining me today, everyone. I really appreciate it, and I hope you're having a great day.